Good morning. Good morning, and hope you're enjoying the 2020 Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Competitive Advantage Talks presented by Kraft Analytics Group. My name is Dan Ford, and I'm a first-year MBA student at MIT Sloan. It is my pleasure to introduce our next presentation, The Power of Location Data, brought to you by Deloitte. Please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Chad Deweese, Senior Manager at Deloitte. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Much appreciated. So Chad Deweese, I am a member of Deloitte's sports group, focusing on a bunch of anything. So if you ask what we do at Deloitte, we usually say, what do we not do? In sports, we try to stay a little bit more focused than that. So sports, think of us as off the field on the business side. And I help teams, leagues, associations think about big strategic problems, ranging from what do I do in 5 years, all the way down to fan engagement, data and analytics, tech stacks. But today, I want to talk about the power of location data. It's a topic that is super popular in the industry right now, what we believe is under-leveraged, and something that we're continuously helping teams understand how to use and drive more value from. Before we dive into that, definitely want to thank our friends at Skyhook. Skyhook is a location data service provider here in Boston. If you guys want to know about the technology behind all this, talk to the guy up here in the front row. Skyhook is a good partner. We use them across industries, whether it's healthcare, CP, retail. They give you where people go and the devices, where they go, and let you know how to drive value from them. So with that, let's start pretty high level, and then we'll drill down and show you what location data can do. So Boston, welcome to Boston. You guys all know these things. The census tells us these things. So about 700,000 people here. Skew young. Looking at the audience out here, I think that's pretty obvious. Lots of students in this area, pretty young population. From an ethnicity perspective, you'll see about 50% Caucasian, but also a pretty good representation from minority groups. When you look over to income levels, upper middle class, a little bit at the top level. I think Tom Brady and his crew bring that one up. And then there's a lot of professors in this market looking for tenure in that 100, 150 range. Headed that way soon. Boston, as we know, is a great sports market. If you've ever been to Boston or met somebody from there, they'll tell you that. So we looked at 1 week in December, and in that 1 week, there were 3 Bruins games, 2 Celtics games, and a Cher concert, on top of a Patriots game where they were playing an unlikely foe, somebody who else would go and win a Super Bowl later in that year. On top of this, you guys all live the daily life that we do where there's competition for our time, for our attention. How do teams differentiate themselves from each of the games and everything else we have in our daily lives, as well as the fact that we can sit in front of our beautiful TV and watch the game like we're in the front row? Teams do a bunch of different things. We took a sample. They cater to the wide audience when it comes to how do you attract fans. It's really hard if you don't have detailed data around your fan base about how to segment and target them with the offer that would be applicable to them and to their needs. My favorite up here is the Love Your Melon Night. I hate I missed that one at the Bruins. I get a free beanie for coming. But other standard things, jerseys, calendars, a fan fest on opening night, and then there's always something like a $1 Dunkin' in Boston that's going to get people to come somewhere. We set out with our friends at Skyhook to figure out, is there a better way that you can understand what people want and how you can drive them into your arenas and into your stadiums? So what you'll see here is a moving map of traffic going in and out of Gillette Stadium on December the 8th when the Chiefs were playing the Patriots. So you'll see people coming in, you'll see people leaving, and we'll dive into what they do around that here in a minute. But for what we did, we looked at about 197 events, so specific events in specific venues around the area and across the country. Gave us 53,000 unique device IDs. So we don't know exactly who the people are, but we know who the devices are and have a hashed version of that to be able to match to interesting things like demographics, location, where they go when they're not at the actual venue itself. And we did all of this without any team data. So if there's any teams in the audience, who's using location data right now? It's a pretty popular thing. People are using it primarily for marketing, so I know where to geo-target some of my tickets. But there's much more that you can do with that we'll dig into as we move forward here. So again, no team data here. As we go through this, take the logic leap to think about what you could do if you were down to that individual fan level, whereas right now we're down to an individual fan, but only with our data and Skyhook data. Start super high level. Where do your fans come from? A lot of people know this. They can do surveys around it, but it's interesting when you start diving in by event and understand how wide your market is. The Patriots have 8 games a year, plus a couple playoff games usually. It's coming from all over New England, as you can see over on the right side here, left side for you guys. The Celtics games, as you can imagine, a little more concentrated, many more opportunities to be there. Market's not quite as big, but if you look, it comes from a little bit north of Boston, more than south of Boston. But what else did they do? Where else did they come from? What do they do around the event? So we looked at what they did 2 hours before, which we'll get to, but who are these people and where do they come from? Who are these people coming from these various areas? Well, a little different than the census. So we had around 50% Caucasian, now we have 80. Very small minority level, but the gender mix is pretty even. Again, I think that's probably going to change when Tom Brady leaves Boston sometime in the near future, but right now it's pretty even. Compared to the census again, Boston skews younger, but fans skew older. Looking at the income level, pretty close to the median, but you can also see that there's much larger disparity than you would expect from the census data. Boston fans are not really getting captured in that 150 to 200 plus market as much as one would think that they might. Now, where do they go? So we took a look at 2 hours before the game to see where these devices went and which retailers, which restaurants, which activities they were taking advantage of. So Gillette Stadium, Patriot Place, quite a great development. You can see that people are taking advantage of that, but they're doing other things as well before the game. So here, again, we're in Boston. About a third of the fans that went to the Patriots game went to Dunkin'. Some of them also stopped at Express. If I'm thinking about a Patriots brand, thinking about how to attract fans, I'm usually not thinking about how do I connect with Express to connect them with our fans. Well, there they are, shopping for new looks. Other things that show up pretty regular, Subway, McDonald's. There's a National Amusements at Patriots Place. 8% of people are actually going to watch a movie before a Patriots game. Starbucks, that was very surprising in this area. I'm assuming that we're Chiefs fans in town, but at least it showed up. How do you actually integrate that into the experience? How does it compare across teams? So very similar market, same fan base in theory that you can attract. Well, here we are. It actually looks really similar when you look at a Patriots game, a Celtics game, and a Bruins game. But there is a little bit of disparity that you can start to tease out when you look at this location data. So before a Celtics and a Bruins game, more people are likely to go get hamburgers at a fast food chain than they are before a Patriots game. Could that be because of time? Absolutely, but you can dig into why. You see things like Starbucks is actually relatively popular with a Celtics fan and a Bruins fan compared to a Patriots fan. What about after the game? Well, are they taking advantage of that or are they not? It shows here that they are. A lot of the venues you see here are in Patriot Place. But they're hungry, they go to McDonald's. They actually lost this game, so I guess that they were feeling that hunger for winning that they usually are able to do on the field. They go back to Express. It's close to Patriots Place. They're looking for more clothes, probably to stay warm after that cold game. Celebratory beer, probably those are Chiefs fans if I had to guess, or others drowning their sorrows. And then the last one here is they actually go to Bed Bath & Beyond. It's a running joke, but a big group of people go to Bed Bath & Beyond after a game to really get whatever they need to pick up for the rest of the week that's headed their way, or to get some blackout shades because the sun might be a little too bright in the morning after a Patriots loss. How does that compare? As you can tell from a similar graphic here, the fan base is relatively similar. You have the same fan base that you're attracting in the same market, but you can see that people are taking advantage of some of the local offers. You see banners close to TD, as well as Starbucks still creeping in there compared to what you see at a Patriots. All of this is at that still aggregate, who are the people that went to the game level, but much better, as you can tell, than census data would have been. How can you actually get more granular and start looking at segments of fans and understanding how to attract them? We looked at a group of fans called Superfans. These are people who go to 3 games, at least during that 1-week time frame. Sports fans or sports teams are constantly looking for how to move people up the value chain who have already expressed an interest in an interest in going to your games, moving them up to be season ticket members, buy larger packages, spend more money with the team, more money with the brand. So we looked at the Superfan. Where do they come from? A lot of them coming straight from the greater Boston area as opposed to the city center, but 9% in Charlestown and 9% in Beverly. From an age perspective, 40% boomers. You can imagine they probably have a little bit more free time than some of the students in the younger population, but there's still 60% out there that are not boomers coming to 3 or more games a week that we could end up targeting. 30% in that median income level. I'm imagining that the rest of this skews higher, given that they have to buy tickets to 3+ games, so you can dig into that and understand which demographic, which income level are you targeting and reaching with your offers. 65% Caucasian, that means 35% minority. Much different than what the overall aggregate level groups look like. So how do you actually start targeting the minority groups to bring them to the game because they're already expressing a good propensity to come at that more frequent level? What else does a superfan do? Is there anything else you can glean from their behavior versus the aggregate? Everybody loves Dunkin' in Boston. If you don't have to heard anything else, you know that. But Target shows up. They're doing some shopping before they go to the game, whether that's on a Sunday for a Patriots game or during the week for a Bruins or a Celtics game. They go to the game, and after, a much higher propensity tend to go to CVS than the lower end, the fans who don't go to as many games. And then they're more prone to take advantage of those local venues, such as Banners or the CBS scene near Patriot Place. Fan engagement, the way that we talk about it, is much larger than just the game day experience. And when you start developing a relationship with a fan, you have to think about it outside of the game day. You can only see so much from what they do in that 1 day a week when they come and visit you, or the 3 days for these people. How do you actually look at their greater life and understand how to integrate your brand with the things that they're interested in an authentic way and make that connection? So we worked with Skyhook to look 30 days before an event and understand where these people spend their time and their money to find ways to connect this to the sports team's brands. Boston has a lot of DIYers in the Superfan group. 21% go to Home Depot. All right, well, where's the Home Depot sponsorship that lines up with the Celtics, the Bruins, or the Patriots? Pharmacies, CVS has been up there, but lots of visits to pharmacies, high-profile target that you can actually start integrating with. Apparel shopping, so it's interesting to think about where people go. We looked at Express from the aggregate population, but department stores was the highest propensity for the superfan population. And of those, you get down to Macy's. There's a new brand that you can infuse into the experience and into the relationship with the fan and something that they've expressed an interest in that can help drive further engagement. Then eating out, fast food burgers. Very popular in Boston, very popular with the sports fan, and of those who are eating fast food, they're going to McDonald's. So again, we see significant propensity to engage with big brands, but at a level in which a team can't tell right now, because they don't have that data that can understand where people go and what they do. How does this compare across markets? Well, the Boston Superfan, we've already talked a lot about hamburgers, not that much about fast food sandwiches. So not too many visits to Subway compared to Superfans in other markets, where you see a much higher propensity to visit those venues. Bargain goods retailers versus specialty niche apparel stores. And then again, Boston loves Dunkin'. 2 more times than anybody else in the sample size that we looked at. What value can all of this provide? So we believe that location data can help start predicting fan behavior. So not only can you understand when people are coming in and when they're leaving an arena and try to optimize for that, we know that one of the biggest pain points in a fan experience on game day is getting in and out of arena. So how do you attract them to come earlier or later and stay longer to help even that flow out? You can do that when you understand how people behave based on the location data. Personalizing experience. If you know where people go, where they spend their free time, you can glean those moments that matter and attach those moments to your brand to really surprise and delight them and continue to build that white glove service inside and outside of your venue. This is an area or a time where we all like personalization. We expect it. We expect things to be relevant to us. You can figure that out looking at location data. Value of sponsorships. Sponsors are already asking for who am I reaching with the dollars that I'm spending, and sports teams do a decent job of telling them who they do based on some big swags on who's in that population. If you have this in your app, you can understand exactly who the people are, where they go, what demographic they fall in. Because it's first-party data at that point when it's in your app. Advertising and broadcasting. You're now able to segment your advertising to a greater specific target population that people were trying to reach, as opposed to relying on tools like Facebook, Instagram, that can connect you to a similar demographic. You can get very targeted and specialized when you understand who the people are, what they want, and what they do. There's a whole big circle up here that's not even covered, and that's thinking about new monetization opportunities. So I'm not talking about pushing more product. I'm talking about understanding what fans want and giving that to them in an authentic, connected way from your brand by helping banks, retailers, others that are trying to reach that population and actually driving monetary value for the brand itself, as well as the team, and actually value for the fan. Again, this is all with our own data and Skyhook data. This is not with team data. So if you're able to get that first-party data on who these people are, where they go, and what they do, the value options are incredibly hard to imagine, but you can do that now. And that's what we help teams do on a pretty regular basis these days. So with that, I will open it up for any questions. Right here in the middle.
Yeah, you were talking about how you're using location data for the devices even in the 30 days previous to showing up at a stadium. Was that strictly like site visits, or were you guys able to essentially like cross it over to the browsing behaviors that they're doing on the phone as well?
We were only looking at site visits, but you can connect it once you can actually understand the device IDs, what they're doing in the tracking online. But we only looked at site visits. The other piece, which is interesting that we haven't talked about here, we didn't get down to this granular level. It's hard to get to in 15 minutes. But now we can figure out, kind of similar to what you're talking about, not only the unique device ID and where they go, we can talk about how much money they spend at said retailers or venues, and then use panels to understand what they're buying at these, connect that to the online behavior, and you get a really full picture of what your fans are doing. I can't really see, so somebody...
This is somewhat of a specific question, but you mentioned the banners, tap, and grill a good amount in the presentation. That actually sits on top of a Starbucks and like a grocery store or Star Market. Is there a way you were able to actually like tease out kind of what level they are in that structure and to know they're actually in banners versus like a Starbucks or the grocery store?
I'm going to phone a friend on that one if we can do that. Can I phone this friend?
Matt from Skyhook. We try to do our best. Banners is huge. We did a site visit there. But we try to do as much as the geometry as possible. The Starbucks and the Shaw's, I think, is underneath. We look at times of day and traffic patterns, and just better understand that before and after a game, you can obviously see who's in the banners versus a closed Starbucks next door. So when there are multiple venues on top of each other, we try to do our best. But we try to do the best geometry possible.
That's when it gets interesting, when you start coupling not only where people go, but what they spend, and you can see share of wallet that's going to somewhere like banners versus somewhere like Starbucks, and match it that way.
So you talked about adding monetary value. How would this be important to teams like the Patriots who are selling out week in and week out? They're filling their stadium. Why would they need this type of data when they only play 10 times a year and they're gaining all of that value in those 10 days?
So think about the value of the sponsorships that they have. Right now they're already high. They can go higher when you can get your sponsors more direct access to fans in a very clear, segmented manner. Couple that with thinking about media rights and broadcast. Not everybody can come to Patriots Place every week and watch the games. How do you get more eyeballs to watch because you understand what they're looking for? And how do you have a second screen experience that engages them in an authentic way that they're interested in? That gets increased time and attention that'll bring your broadcast rights up as well. So on a daily ticket, maybe not. Ticket prices could go up, I would imagine. But if the stadiums are selling out, which those numbers are typically misleading, if they're selling out, it is tough to drive more attendance to a game.
Hi. Can you talk for a minute about how you can combine some of that data with when you actually work with the teams with some of their, their ticketing information and their proprietary data?
Yeah, so we work with this in a few different ways. We work with teams who don't have any location data, and we bring in location data based on the similar story that I just told you, and can connect it based on demographics, so similar lookalikes. So we know these demographics. Well, here is someone who looks like that, and here's what they do. Let's start targeting it that way. It's even more powerful when a team does have location data, and we can start tagging it and understanding where they're going and connecting it to ticket purchases, spend with the team. It makes it a lot more targeted when it comes to offers straight from the team. I'm not going to lie and say that I know how to connect all these pieces together, but I can talk a lot about it.
Hi, thank you. So for teams that play in the same venues, like the Celtics and the Bruins obviously had pretty similar demographics with where they went like before and after games. So would you say that teams that do play in the same venues generally have like the same data?
I don't know. I would imagine so, just given the fan base and how closely connected they are. But look at different fan bases and what they're attracted to from an NBA versus an NHL team based on the market that they're in. So when Atlanta actually had a hockey team, the fan base that went to a Hawks game versus wherever the Thrashers game was different. In Philly, might be a different population when you've got a Sixers fan versus a Flyers fan. You have to actually get down to that granular level, and that actually helps when you start thinking about a venue's naming rights and the signage inside a building to be able to carve it out by the different populations that you're reaching.
So a lot of the stuff you've talked about so far is kind of looking back at where people are going and what they're doing. Can you talk about, have you guys looked at, with any of the Boston examples, trying to influence that behavior? So recognizing that they've visited Express or visited McDonald's, those aren't partners of that said team. Yep. But instead pushing them from, say, a Starbucks to a Dunkin', saying, we realize you didn't go to Dunkin' this game. If you get there in the next 5 minutes, we'll give you $1 off Dunkin' or something like that. So talk about how you influence future behavior. I realize everything you've been able to collect, I think a lot of us are there, but the next step is how do you influence the next set of behaviors from said fans?
Test and learn, test and learn, test and learn, and actually understand what actually is hitting the mark and what's not. But now you understand what can influence the behavior, right? So nobody's doing this really well in terms of you have the exact science of these are the things that are going to hit every single time. You have to continue innovating, just like you do with the themes that came up on the Beanie Night or the Fan Fest. New offers, new targets, try it, learn, try again, and iterate.
But are you actually sending push notifications through the app to influence said behavior? Or are you guys just...
It depends. So we have relationships with the team where we send it when they're in the district. So here's the push notification. You walk by McDonald's. We think you might like this. There's your notification. But then you can also do it from like we know you like to visit McDonald's. Next time on your way to the game, here's your email offer to go take in. That's all around how do you work with partners. A lot of times when you work with someone like a big food brand or a big retailer, sorry, not trying to say names here, given that we work with a lot of these folks. They're not as agile as a team can be, and teams don't usually have as many capabilities as they would like to be to craft all these offers. So you got to find a way to connect with these big brands or the little brands and craft those offers in almost a real-time way to test those. Got one more question. So we got somebody in the back.
And in terms of that, in terms of the app now, with the way that Apple is constantly reminding folks, like, hey, you have location services turned on, don't you want to turn it off now? Like, we've found that, oftentimes our segmented pushes to location base have gone down in terms of open rates or in terms of how many people they hit. Do you have options or solutions for that?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen, and this is across industries, is you have to have a very clear value proposition for why someone should have it on. Don't just do it to track where people go and what they do. Use it to give value to their experience and to their life in a way that feels authentic with your brand. If it feels authentic, they'll keep it on. If they keep getting things they don't care about, they'll turn it off. It's easier said than done, right? That's back to the test and learn approach. All right, thank you for your time. Thanks Skyhook for your help, and let us know if you have any questions after.